Don't you forget about me. Oh.
Welcome to your awakening. Please take care as your reality is adjusted.
Good morning, Global Gulag. And hello, good people. Hello, everyone in the chat room. Screen share. Stop the screen share. Get Bojo's flabby face off the screen share. Yes, welcome back once again. Another edition of Sol Excalibre on this Moon Day evening, the 25th of the 1st, 2021. Hello to everyone in the chat room. Yes, this is the moment where I try and multitask and open all the windows all at once. No, I had them already ready, but we were too busy yakking about the eclipse in was 2020, wasn't it? Yeah, not 2020, 2000. Let me know. Getting all my twos mixed up. There's too many twos in this year, and it's just gone 2000 hours as well as another two. All these twos all over the place. Yeah, we were too busy yakking about watching the solar eclipse in the year 2000, millennium solar eclipse, and reminiscing about those days when you were allowed to go to other places. You were allowed to be at a festival with loads of other people, you know, all standing around far too close together. That is maybe a time capsule message for the future. Yes, this is a message from 2021. We're all locked down. We're all being held prisoner, mostly against our will. Just to make that clear, because I'm sure there's some people that are happy to be locked up for whatever their reason. Yes, anyway. Already in with the digressing because we were late and rushing as per usual. So there you go. It's the usual kind of start. Hello to everyone in the chat room. Greetings, well met, fellow, hail, salutations, and all that good stuff. I haven't even clicked the thumbs up on my own video. What's going on? Do that just to hope that it gets a little bit more notice on the YouTubes, but you know what all this stuff is like. That's why I don't bother doing keywords and all that kind of stuff. I don't bother telling people to like, share, subscribe, you know, because you all know that already anyway. You're on YouTube, so you already comprehend how YouTube works. And when it comes to trying to get that kind of YouTube algorithm traction, it doesn't work if you're talking about certain subjects or certain ideas or, you know, just things that are not allowed verboten. I was tempted this week to change the thumbnail for the show to just a picture of some kittens. I was just curious whether it might change the way the algorithm looks at the broadcast when it comes up in the listing. You know, maybe I need some kittens with masks on and stuff like that, and Nazi helmets, or, you know, some kind of state police dictatorial power symbology, representations of that kind of thing. But let me just do a quick scroll down through the chat room before it gets too full. Otherwise it takes hours and hours and hours for me to say hello to everyone. Genuinely concerned, hello, you better wake your ass up. I bang the desk. I don't know if it works with my headset, because I know Jeff always had a desktop mic, so, you know, him banging the desk, it resonated through the mic. Just Penn, hello. Thanks for joining us. And High Plains Drifter, hello. Sidefish, hello. Tasmedia's in the chat, hello. And Big Al, Alan McVicker, hello, mate. Hope you're enjoying the wonderful weather we're having. Benner, hello. It's Dr. Rock. Check out his show on a Thursday night We will mention it before the end of this show as well. And I'll grab the link and share it in the chat room. Simon Boyle, hello. Lotsome Tatfro, hello. Lotsome Lowlands Pete, hello. I hope you're all right, sheltering in place over there in the lowlands. Yeah, you got to watch out for them flying constables. I'll show some imagery from that in a bit. Brad 42948, hello. Thanks for joining in the chat. So Safe, hello. And Canal, hello. Johnny Walker, hola. Hello, hola. Ridiculizer, hello, mate. Mascara Snake, hello. Dave Iron, hello. Faith Ferrer, hello. I think, I'm waiting for the chat room to catch up a little bit. Cerebral Pisces, hello. I know some people have been trying to post links as comments under the videos. YouTube seems to be just vanishing them. I get a notification about a comment being posted. When I go to look for the comment, it's just not there. I think I might have mentioned this last week as well. If you get that kind of effect, if you're trying to post a link, the only thing I can think to suggest to try is just post a comment, then post the link as a reply to your own comment. That might make it show up. I don't know. The way the YouTube shadow banning is going now, sometimes you can type something in and it just vanishes into the internet ether, into the ethernet.
I'll back you up with that, Cookie, because that happens to me all the time on the reality chat continually, where comments are just there and and they appear as well weeks later.
Sometimes they do, yeah. It's almost as if they've been deliberately put on the naughty step until the crowd has gone past, and then once all the crowd, the internet traffic has gone, then they're allowed to come back out again, like they're in lockdown. Your comments are being put into lockdown. But yeah, please try sharing the links if you can. But yeah, it's just the way YouTube is at the moment. Lion Share, hello. Yes, I will mention UK column in a bit. I did watch that earlier, and it's more good coverage from them. Ricardo, hello. Hang on, chat room suddenly jumped on me then, bloody thing. Suddenly catching up. And I'll keep scrolling. Steve, hello, Steve to Goose. Hello, thanks for joining in the chat. And Dottie is Big T, hello, mate. And Hot Retarded Chicks, hello. My name is Nancy Pelosi. Yeah, good one. Swale, hello. And 9 Ether, hello. Thanks for joining in the chat. Quantum Epic, hello. Hello, good people. I'm still scrolling. There's quite a few joining in the chat tonight, so welcome everyone. Thanks for joining in. That's what the chat is there for if you want to. Obviously, it's just there for you to make use of if you want to. Yeah, there is no requirement to perform. You are not ordered to participate. Learn, if ever you've been in militarized service or military service or something similar, the first thing you learn very quickly is never volunteer for anything. Never volunteer. Hive Mind Concussion, hello. Now my chat room's caught up a bit, I think. Wish Fix, hello. And yeah, I think it's caught up now. Right. Hello to everyone in the chat room, and hello to everyone who's watching, just tuning in or tuning in on the video replay and all that good stuff. Again, you know how YouTube works, so I'll just get on with it. I was curious as well whether this week YouTube would allow what I'd written in the info box, in the subtitle, as I like to refer to it as. It's like the subtitle for this week's episode. Just arbiter truth. Arbiter of truth. Or is it really just arbiter prick? A bitter prick. Is he a prick who's just bitter? Yeah, I wasn't sure if YouTube would even allow the word prick in the text, because, you know, prick doesn't just necessarily refer to genitalia. It's a word in the English language that can be used in other ways, with other meanings, you know. Back in the day, this is partly why it was going through my head recently. I had an arbiter of prick going through my head. Back in the day, when I was a lot younger, when you go to the nurse and you were getting an injection for something, they would say, just a little prick, as in, I'm just about to stick the needle into you. You know, so you're going to feel that sensation of a little prick. But at some time, I think maybe the 90s, I'm not sure when this started to spread, because it could be connected into a lot of the threads of things like political correctness and intersectionality, because, you know, you can't mention things to do with sex and gender, because otherwise people get offended and then you get prosecuted. To, at some point in the not too long ago history, they started training the medical staff, the nurses, to not say little prick, and instead now they say something like little scratch or a scratch. And I remember several years ago now, when I happened to be in hospital because of all my craziness, but no, I was in for my lungs, not for craziness. That's driven me crazy, but anyway. And I was in the hospital, and the nurse was going to inject me with, I think it's barium that they use in the MRI scan, because they wanted to scan my system, scan my circulatory system. And she was just about to stick this great big syringe in me. She's like, just a little scratch. And I was like, you what, love? That's a fucking big prick you're about to jam into me, not a little scratch. And she just looked at me with this deadpan, I am not amused face. And recently, a lot of this messaging that has been coming out about the military, I keep saying military instead of medical. It's almost like the two words are merging together now, isn't it? Medical martial law, military martial law, aren't they one and the same thing? They're all just martial law. But yeah, some of the news articles, the opinion pieces or commentary pieces that have been pushed around in the last week or 2 or 3 have been putting this idea out there of how the medical staff are worried that they might be held accountable for things that might happen connected to the injections. Basically, they're saying, please don't prosecute us if your relative suddenly dies after they've been given the vaccine. Funny how, at the same time, there's lots of these reports coming out about how many people in different countries are dying either just after or not long after having their first dose of the vaccine. I wonder why these medical staff are now worried about that kind of thing. But yeah, it just recalled for me the image of that nurse's face when I pointed out, like, why are you telling me it's a little scratch, love? And just that deadpan, I am not amused look on her face as it say, oh, you're the first guy that's ever said that to me. You're so original. But at the same time, it was that look of resignation of, I have to do this job day in, day out. I don't need to put up with, that kind of commentary from you while I'm busy trying to do all this stuff. But anyway, I think I have to mention, let me find the imagery. I have to mention this because this was part of my inspiration as well for the title tonight, because I had been trying to summarize some of the stuff that I wanted to talk about the arbiter, the arbiters of truth. Who is your arbiter? And why is it that people have this propensity to refer to an arbiter of truth? Looking in the wrong section. Find the correct one. Stay on target. Yeah, why is it that people keep going through this process of deferring to an external arbiter? And how is that constantly used and abused by those people that wish to control your society and control your life? Because you are just a cog in a machine. You are a unit within the functioning of that mechanism. So they need to be able to measure you, like Bojo here measuring the size of his little weenie. Yeah, after my vaccine, I've lost a testicle and my penis is still this size. Still the same size. The injections didn't work. But yeah, I've been trying to think of a way of describing that effect, that arbiter effect. And then I saw, this is a meme from Big Tony. Yeah, this is classic, classic satire of a currently sitting politician. Yeah, and it's just the hair as well, just makes the whole imagery really. And the sign in the background, AstraZeneca supplies, yeah. A to Z supplies. And what is it they're going to supply you? Well, don't ask too many questions. They just want you to sit back and accept the little prick they want to stick into you. So that had me thinking, that combination of arbiter and bitter, arbiter. I was looking at the etymology of the word arbiter. Let me screen share that. Oh, I need to select the right tab first, don't I? Yeah, this is, quality television, state of the art software. Clicking on links and opening windows and sharing windows and talking about them. Yeah, just to show you, I'll put the link in the side chat as well. Yeah, it's not exactly anything majorly amazing. It is a very old word, or certainly in terms of modern languages, it is quite an old word and hasn't really changed much over that time, and has referred to the same thing throughout that length of time. So I think it's quite a good solid definition to refer to. But the main thing is the usual sense of it being a judge of some kind, one chosen by two disputing parties to decide the matter. So in other words, supposedly an arbiter or arbitrator is somebody that is actively and willingly in knowledge, in foreknowledge of the situation, is chosen by the two disputing parties. In sort of a more modern emanation, that's more likely to be somebody like a lawyer or a barrister, that you would employ them to be your representative, and they act as that arbiter for you. They supposedly are arguing for you against the opposition, arguing against you for whatever reason. But it was that element of, yes, it's a judge of some kind, somebody who makes a decision based on the information put before them, information in documents or eyewitness accounts, etc. But it's somebody that is chosen by both parties, by both sides of the case. Whereas what we've ended up with, what seems to be the modern internalized acceptance of the situation, is that arbiters are experts. An expert is an arbiter of truth. You don't need to pursue a case against a lie to try and figure out whether it is or is not truth. Is it a truth or is it a lie? You're trying to find that out. You have this middleman that acts as the arbiter for you and tells you what is the truth. I know a lot of this is just going to sound so bloody obvious, but there is unfortunately a need at the moment, I think, to state the obvious. Sometimes that makes it very, how can I describe it? It's condescending, but it's also disempowering, because it belittles everybody, or the majority of people anyway, who this kind of thing should be obvious to in the first place anyway. But one of the unfortunate effects of the internet and mass media is the ability for the lowest common denominator to be part of the audience, part of the people looking for those answers or looking for that information. So if you're speaking to a crowd, and you see this effect in politicians like Bojo, you know, I just showed his face enough earlier. I'm not going to bring it up again for now. But you see this effect in people who talk to large groups of other people. The more the number is in the group of people that you're talking to, the more watered down the message becomes. And the best speakers, the great orators, as they would call them, they were the ones who were able to put an idea across to as large a number of people as possible in a simpler way as possible, so that you adding in all those people that I would refer to as the lowest common denominators. In other words, the people that might struggle or just not comprehend at all what it is that you're trying to say to them. So you have to put it in simpler and simpler and simpler language. And unfortunately, that has a processing effect that over time, that means your language becomes simpler and simpler and simpler. And because the language is simpler, that leads to minds that are simpler. It's an epigenetic effect. If you put people into a classroom where they are only ever allowed access to resources that equate to, let's say, a learning age of 8, 7 or 8, you give them reading materials that a 7 or 8 year old should be able to read, but you never ever allow them access to anything beyond that, then they're always going to be somewhat limited. Yes, of course, their own abilities will enable them to add to the resources they have available to them. They could extrapolate on ideas, they can add their own ideas, etc., etc. But compared to somebody who's allowed access to an entire library, those people stuck in that 8-year-old classroom are going to be constantly struggling to comprehend what the people in the library are talking about. So the arbiter of truth is telling you, the experts are telling you, that all you need is a little prick to save the world, to save the planet, to save the old normal life that you used to love, that you want back, that you are getting so frustrated that they are taking it away and not allowing you to have it back again, supposedly. Put not allowing in parentheses, in bunny ears. They tell you you're not allowed. They do not have the logistic manpower to actually physically prevent you. So they just tell you, and they need you to accept that. Now, I didn't pull up the etymology for the word prick. Simply because, again, it should be fairly obvious to most people, some of the different meanings of that word. But I was tempted to include it simply because it is more relevant than you might at first think. Simply because, the way I've included it in that statement, it makes it sound like it's just something meant to be derogatory. It's verging into the use of foul language or bad language or profanities, etc. That creates connotations to do with, you're just swearing at somebody, you're just expressing that kind of bitter anger. You're using a swear word to make it more aggressive or forceful in some fashion. But there's a massive pile of monkey butts in this one. The word prick is another word for penis in the English language. The word penis in Latin is pater or pater. The word itself is threaded back through our etymological roots, back to biblical times, where it represented the progenitor in one way or another. So the insertion of something to begin or to initiate the process of the creation of life. Obviously in the holistic sense, you don't have just the prick to create life. But I know in a modern academic environment, they might turn around and say, see, that's proof of the patriarchy. You got penis in the language, encoded into the language etymologically for millennia, for thousands of years. We've been referring to this spiritual element of our reality, because that's what it resolves back to, as the penis, the prick, the pater, the father. They all refer etymologically to the same thing. And that connects, I know it's a little bit loose in this connection, but it's certainly relevant. It connects to longer threads that we've often talked about on these shows and on other shows, and many other people have pointed out that all this kind of stuff. When you look at the symbolic language and the symbolism which was yet again paraded recently for the inauguration ceremony in a particular nation on this planet, because all the nations have similar ceremonies that they do, dogmatic ceremonial events. But in this one, it's part of the three rings. I mentioned that over the last couple of weeks. The three rings, the rings of power, or seats, as some people refer to them, or thrones even, the three thrones. Washington is one of those three rings of power. And the symbology is encoded in the city itself. The dome is the womb, and the obelisk is the penis, the pater, the father, the prick. And it really made me giggle when some of the American news media were talking about how that view of the obelisk with all the lights running down along either side of the pool, and they were referring to it as like the arms of Creepy Joe reaching out to hug America. And it's like, he's reaching out to hug America, and then it's going to sniff its hair. They didn't add that bit at the end. But it's that obelisk is the prick, the pater, the father. So this kind of symbolic element has been repeated recently, but it's been there subtly in the background throughout this year, into last year, which is why I was ranting so much about that Phoenix effect in 2019. This thing was about to happen, whatever it was. I didn't know back then that they were going to use this kind of viral epidemic to achieve their goals, or many of their goals, but I sensed there was something coming, because they kept putting out those symbols, the dome and the penis, the womb and the penis constantly repeated. Like they're going through the ceremony of reattaching Horus's penis, to bring him back to life. Or is it Osiris's penis, isn't it? Yeah, it's Osiris's penis. Anyway, prick seemed very appropriate to me in many ways, partly because of that connotation of people like Johnson is a prick. Wishfix just put in the chat, prick, see also Johnson. I'll be in the Oxford definition, looking up prick, Boris Johnson. It's like if you look up bum, it says Gordon Brown, face like in brackets. It's easy to be sarcastic about the politicians and those people that are the faces that are put in front of us to represent different things, like Billy Bob Gates representing the so-called billionaire philanthropists. Say that when you're pissed. Philanthropists. They're all a bunch of pricks as well, but that's the point of the prick of the needle. The needle is that element of the penis being injected into you, the womb, to receive the insemination that they want to insert into you. That was the other element of why I chose to use that word rather than any other. Let me just get back to my notes, because I know I'm already digressing. Yes, I did also want to mention today, this episode, it's the 25th, so that's a 7, but then you got to add in the rest of the digits in the date. But the dates again are becoming very, very relevant. And this particular episode, I felt there's been various things happen over the last few weeks that I want to just mention a little bit just to try and reiterate the point, and it connects back to the concept of the arbiter. Who is your arbiter? Are you just looking for yet another arbiter, or are you just accepting somebody who steps forward and says, I'm an expert, I can tell you about blah, 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 blah. You're accepting this new arbiter that's presenting itself to you, himself, herself, itself, whatever it is. Or are you applying your own thinking? But yes, today is the 17th episode of this season. 17th. That again stood out to me. It's like, oh, there we go. And there's another one of those synchronistic connections. I don't want to say coincidence because there's no such thing as a coincidence. But why is it that this seems to happen a few times now? Topics or subject matters seem to coincide with either the date that I'm broadcasting or the episode number. Something similar in that kind of fashion, that kind of connection. But yeah, episode 17. What's the 17th letter of the alphabet, everyone? You know, we've mentioned this a few times recently because, again, of that connection back to the inauguration and the 4-year-long stage play that has rolled out across the world, really, because even though it's directly relevant to America, to the USA, of course, it's got its knock-on effects to the rest of the world. It's all part of a single global system. Geopolitics, not just national politics. So we come back to that point about the 17th letter. Phonetically, I'll type it in the chat so you can see what I mean. Phonetically, it's somewhat unusual, apart from it appears in some European languages. But the letter Q, the 17th letter of the English alphabet, you don't encounter it in all other languages or alphabets. It's somewhat particular to Europeans, and it doesn't appear until about the late Middle Ages, I think, something like that. And it represents phonetically that K-U, Q. And it's almost like it's got a silent F-U-C at the beginning. You know, fuck you. Fuck you, fuck you, Q. Yeah, you just leave out the fuck and it's just Q. So I wondered whether that might have been some of the reason why they chose that particular letter for their project that they rolled out a few years ago, 4+ years ago. But I think there's a lot of other connections as to why. I've mentioned before, I think about 17 resolves to an 8, and the 8 is the infinity. So it's like them making a nod towards the fact that they're just going to keep kicking the can down the road for ad infinitum. You know, there is no answer at the end of this stage play. There is no conclusion. It's just one act after another, after another, after another. They just keep changing the set. You know, the actors step off the stage for a moment and stick a sticky mustache on, and they come back on as the new villain. And, you know, it's just going on and on and on and on. And there was just that element of the can kicking down the road that has been plaguing, it seems appropriate, sorry for the pun, it's been plaguing all of us in every country, not just the situation with the presidential election in the USA, but that element of can kicking has been happening again here in the UK. You know, now I don't think it's true that the public haven't noticed, it's just that the press don't tell the public that the rest of the public have noticed. The media is being steered in a very deliberate fashion. In the last report, shout out again to UK Column, they mentioned this on their show this afternoon. The government themselves admit that their own project to get the message across, you know, I'm saying that deliberately sarcastically because what they're talking about is propaganda, but they won't actually use the word propaganda. They just use doublespeak to talk about, oh, we need to get the message across to people. But they get the message across to the general populace to what they estimate to be 17 times per week. You know, you will encounter a message of one kind or another about coronavirus and the rules, the guidelines about safety restrictions, blah, 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 at least 17 times a week in the UK. And they're accounting for that, even if you're not actively consuming the media relating to the topic, to the subject matter. So they're not talking about people actively going to a news media site and typing in the search term COVID-19 or Corona or whatever. No, they're just talking about how the media is so saturated with the message, it is reaching everyone in the UK at least 17 times a week. That's saturation propaganda. That's the equivalent of like wartime propaganda, which I've banged on about for the last year plus. Yeah, what you are experiencing is the equivalent of wartime propaganda. You wonder why they keep making references to things like, oh, the most number of deaths since wartime. Yeah, why do they keep referring to wartime? Why do they want to keep reminding you of the times that Britain has survived various conflicts, and how we have a stiff upper lip to put up with all this stuff, all these requirements, all these rules and guidelines, because they want you in that mindset to feel like you are at war, but they want you to think the war is with the invisible enemy, the thing you can't see or put your finger on, and you don't even know if it really exists or not. So you're just in a perpetual state of fear because it could be hiding under the cupboards, waiting to come out and get you at any moment. Yeah, you get the point. And the can kicking here in the UK has been such that, according to the media, they're telling us or presenting the idea that most of the public are just perfectly fine. Not any questions. Nobody's holding their hand up saying, excuse me, what the fuck's going on here? We're all just quite happy with the fact that lockdown is just going to go on and on and on and on and on. Now they're talking about the middle of the year, most likely, 30th of July, which, funny enough, that's around the solstice, isn't it? So there's another one of those astrotheological significant dates of the year, or times of the year, phases of the year, of the solar movement. And they're talking, we're going to be in lockdown until then. It's almost like they're planning their calendar from one significant astrotheological date to another. Is there something to that? I don't know, possibly. More than likely, I reckon. But I can't say definitively, and I can't show you a singular piece of evidence and say that that is what they're doing. But it's beyond coincidental now, the amount of times that their implementations of policy or their initiation of things like the mask mandate or the lockdown start date, end date, etc., has close connections to the phases of the solar system. Funny, huh? We've not long had that great conjunction between Jupiter and Saturn. Yeah, is that the two opposing houses? The great war that's been going on for thousands of years, often referred to as the spiders versus the owls. The shadow war between the different secret groups, the secret cults. Possibly, but anyway, digressing a little bit. Just thought I'd mention that, the fact that, they're kicking the can down the road quite successfully at the moment, all over the place, not just in the USA, where yet again the thread has been, trust the plan. It didn't happen on the inauguration day, but don't worry, something will happen really soon, honest, really soon. Just keep believing, keep believing. Yeah, like the illusionist wants you to keep believing in his illusion, because as soon as you stop believing, he's got no show anymore. You leave and you go and do something else because you've seen his show. That should bring me to mentioning that main point about that 17th letter again. Yeah, I've gone in a little circle to come back to the letter Q. I want to screen share something. If it will work. I did try this before and it worked all right, so hopefully it will work again. Let me just, if I do that, you might notice what I had done. Yeah. It's just something, I don't know if anyone else has pointed this out. I haven't heard anyone make this reference. The letter Q itself, the symbol that we use to represent the letter Q looks like a head or a face with a pipe sticking out of it, or you could also say it could be a syringe injected or a penis injected into a womb. And I think there is something quite, again, it's somewhat of a mystical connection. I'm not suggesting that, you know, people in the Middle Ages deliberately went, oh, in the future, in 2020, they'll have a viral outbreak and we need to design a symbol for this phonetical sound that makes it look like, you know, something getting injected. But as I mentioned earlier, you know, there are long-standing connections to these symbols and how they are positioned in the English alphabet and how they are used in the etymology of words. And as another interesting connection, this could be purely coincidental, but there's a really big monkey butt in that one. I don't accept coincidences. You know, when I was searching for an image of the Pied Piper that was, you know, facing the right way, basically suited my purpose to demonstrate the example of the letter Q looking like a face with a pipe or something. You know, maybe it's smoking a big cigar or whatever. I was searching the internet for an appropriate picture to suit that purpose, and I came across this image, which happens to be from a printed comic book version of the Silly Symphonies from Walt Disney. And guess when it was published? 1933. Just one of those funny, weird connections, folks, you know. The Pied Piper, Q the Pied Piper, published in 1933. Another element, I mean, you got the red and the yellow, which some people would, you know, recognize the symbolic reference of those two colors. But also what I noticed, the fact that none of them, apart from maybe the one little boy there, none of them are touching the ground. He's just got the tip of his toe just brushing the ground there, but none of them are touching the ground. It's almost like they're floating along, like in a dream world. It's not really real. It's surreal. It's fantasy. It's illusion. It's a fairy tale. But that connection, it just occurred to me, you know, the Q imagery, the way they played their ridiculous game of secret codes, you know, secret codes that are published on the internet, so anyone who bothers to go and look can find the code key, the secret decoder ring, so that you can figure out what the code is saying, supposedly. Yet the bad people, the naughty people, the people that were against the great golden-haired Messiah, they can't figure out how to use the decoder ring. Oh, no, there's special magic that prevents them from accessing the same bits of the internet that you do, where you can find the secret decoder ring, but they can't. The level of just
bullshit.
Yeah. I was going to say insidious nastiness. You know, they're so sort of, how can I put it without sounding just so over the top? They are infantilizing their audience, because they're doing these kind of things that should, like I was talking about earlier, it should be obvious to most people. It should be obvious. Those failures of simple logic should be obvious to your population. But the reality that there's a lot of people that just went straight over their head, of like, oh no, you go onto these certain forum sites online and you have to look up the code of how you decode a Q post, and then you'll know the secrets, because the people who are the white hats that are operating Q, they want the people, the real patriots, to have access to the information so that they know the Messiah is going to save them. So you go and you find the secret decoder ring, but the bad guys can't do that. No, they can't figure out the messages. That's like you're playing a trick on a 3-year-old. Where's your thumb gone? Oh, I got your thumb. You know, you've got your nose. I've stolen your ear. It's a kind of ridiculous level of trickery. But most people, that just went straight over their head. They were like, oh, yeah, I'll go online and I get these bits of secret information about what the white hats, the guys on the inside that are trying to save us all, are doing to help us. Yeah?
It's all one big psyop, and it was right from the beginning, and people are beginning to see that now. And that external third party thing is so true. You know, you give your power away immediately to someone else to save you.
The one thing I didn't think to look up, I forgot it earlier. I'll try quickly searching. Sorry, folks. Talk amongst yourselves. This is my mistake by not looking this up earlier. I can explain it, but I was just curious whether there was a singular sort of definition available online that anyone's has done. That's Wikipedia. Wiki spooks. That's appropriate. Let's see how they define it. But just for the fact that, you know, I explained this, like, I don't know, at least probably 4 years ago. The Q event, the Q project, even though they tried to spin a narrative claiming that it was just a bunch of trolls on 4chan or 8chan or whatever that came up with a LARP, which is an acronym for live action role play. You know, this is where people like dress up in costumes and pretend they're Darth Vader, you know, whatever. Just, yeah, live action role play. But now they do things online as well. You know, it's a live action role play, but it's all in the virtual world where they're just sending messages to each other. They've tried to spin this claimed history that Q just began from that. But it seemed pretty obvious to me fairly quickly that the whole thing was literally a limited hangout, what is called a limited hangout, which is why I was just curious, like, has anyone done a singular definition to describe that? I've got one other thing that I want to screen share as well before we go on to mentioning about a limited hangout, because it all connects into that. But let me just show this one as well. While I was mooching the Etymology Online website, I was curious as well to look for another word that begins with the letter Q in the English language. You know, there's quiz, but the word I was really looking for, Etymology Online didn't have a listing of it. So I ended up pulling up again the Wikipedia listing for it. And this is the word quisling, which, as far as I know, I thought it was older than what they're claiming here. But I'm not sure whether that might be it, you know, has older roots in the Nordic traditions and Scandinavian language traditions. I don't know. But the Wikipedia listing for it here, quisling, was based on Vidkun Quisling, who was, how do we describe it easily? He was a turncoat, a collaborator. He helped the occupying Nazi forces in Norway. So it became a term of a derogatory term. You know, it's like meant to be offensive. If you call somebody a quisling, it's like you're calling them a traitor, you know. But I thought that was one of those connections again to the letter Q. Could there be a connection of why they call themselves Q? Because they are all quislings. You know, they are traitors to their own people. Even though I know, you know, don't get me wrong, I know they put out this imagery that they're wanting to help the patriots of their nation. You know, that's a big part of their narrative, is that they're all about getting the information to the patriots that are trying to save their democracy, all that kind of thing. But that is classically what a collaborator working with an occupying enemy force, that is classically what they would say. They wouldn't say, oh no, we're just pretending to be your friend because we want to feed you disinformation so that you sit on your ass and do nothing because you think the great savior is going to come and rescue the world and fix all the problems. They're not going to tell you that, are they? That just would be counterproductive. But yeah, years ago, I said limited hangout, and it's proven again and again and again over the course of the last 4 years. This is the wiki spooks definition for limited hangout. Limited hangout is a deliberate revelation of some information, e.g. about malfeasance, to try to confuse and or prevent discovery of other information. A modified limited hangout goes further by slightly changing the information disclosed. I would extend that definition because it doesn't really just refer to some information. Limited hangout also refers to the concept of running an operation or a project that is meant to deliberately spin the majority of the information to suit the chosen narrative, but it will, of course, hand out some real information to make the victims feel that there actually is something here that they need to keep looking at. So, in another way to describe it simply, it's like they want to sell you a pile of shit. So they trick you to come into the shop by doing what they call the loss leaders. They'll put an item in the shop window that is a really good item at a really good price, bargain price. So all the people walking past look in the window and go, oh yeah, that looks good, I want that. They go in and they're then told, oh, I'm sorry, we sold out of that, but we've got this other brand here and it's a little bit more expensive. And, they won't tell you that it's a pile of shit made in a third world country or whatever. No, they'll come up with all the usual sales patter to try and persuade you to stay in the shop and buy the product. That's the misinformation they want to give you. But they have to play this game of keeping you in the shop. So they dribble out little bits of good information or true information. They will point at certain people and show their malfeasance. They will point at certain people and say, oh, that guy is going to be revealed to be a traitor or be revealed to be a con man or a fraudster, or whatever. And lo and behold, that occurs. In the case of the 17th Letter Project, they have very deliberately crafted a narrative that allows them to constantly kick the can down the road and persuade people that any minute now the good information is coming. All the sworn affidavits are going to get opened. All the court cases are going to get brought in. All the children are going to be released from the underground tunnels. All the aliens are going to land from the Pleiades and save us from the craziness. Constantly kick the can down the road. It's coming any minute now, folks. Any minute now, any minute now, any minute now. 4 years later. And this began really around Pizzagate, which is why I thought it was relevant to mention this again. Pizzagate, classically, limited hangout. They give you a certain amount of truthful information. They bait the hook with the possibility of some really, really good information being discovered, but they know full well that that's potential of really good information is actually not available. They're just pretending it might appear, and that keeps people chasing that rabbit. It's quite a while ago, but quite a few people, when we were talking about how Pizzagate was a psyop and it was part of a limited hangout and things like that, a lot of people thought that meant that we were denying the institutionalized paedophilia and the network of people trafficking and the connections into the bloodlines of the family members, the family groupings, the mafias, the mafiosa, like the Clinton family and all that kind of stuff, the Epstein Island and everything else. Just because we call out that one particular event as a psyop does not mean and I'm saying we because it wasn't just me saying it. I'm thinking here in particular Jeff C, because again that's relevant of all that situation happening not so long ago. But he was calling it out back then as well, and we chatted directly about it on one of his broadcasts. Calling out that one particular event as a psyop does not mean you are denying the whole network that is there. They deliberately put that out as a limited hangout to draw people in who were then steered towards what became the Q movement and the Pizzagate, and that we're going to get the satanistic children sacrificers. We're going to capture all these people and release the children from the underground tunnels. That was all deliberate to draw in certain demographics of the American population. Feed them a limited hangout narrative of, oh, well, there was this pizza shop where some of these people used to meet up and they'd talk in weird secret code, and it probably means there's something going on there. But there was nothing there. Why was there nothing there? Because that network had already moved on from that site. That site had been sanitized, and they deliberately set it up to be that entrapment, the limited hangout entrapment, to draw people in and begin a process of creating that narrative and feeding that narrative. So this has been going on though for 4 years, and it's still exactly the same thing. You are expected to throw any logic out the window by going online, and you'll be directed to certain websites, platforms, videos, etc., where they will give you the secret code that enables you to decode the Q drops, the coded releases. And then you magically are, just because you're a good person, you're magically sealed in a little good person bubble. That means only those decoder rings that you've been given only work for you. The bad people can't figure this stuff out. You're expected to take that kind of level of thinking, chasing this rabbit, chasing this can bouncing down the road of any minute now, folks, it's going to save us. Any minute now, it's going to happen. Any minute now, oh, right, okay. 4 years later, the inauguration happens. Yeah, it is a total fraud, I think. Maybe I should say that's my opinion. I'm speculating, allegedly. But it seems pretty obvious, again, things that should be obvious to most people. Most of your population, hopefully, see this for the obvious bullshit that it is. It was a total kerfuffle, or is it kerfuffle? As Trump called something years ago. I can't even remember what it was about now, that when he made that comment and everybody took the piss out of him for it. Kerfuffle? What are you saying, mate? Most people can see that for what it is. But the narrative is still being kicked along of, oh, just keep reading the magic Q drops, keep using your decoder ring, and you'll find out when Q is going to return from the underworld, and he's going to have his glowing crown of hair all shiny, and he'll be nice and orange, ready to save you in the new daylight. On and on and on it goes. And that's why it brought me to that, well, how else do you describe this other than just calling it the Pied Piper? I wanted to mention it again to refer people to that concept of the limited hangout. If that Wiki Spooks definition was a bit lacking, it was a bit vapid. If you extend that concept to the idea of a project that is controlled and managed by a group of agency members, they are agency. They may have secret insiders that are able to get Trump to do things like talk to a rabbit on the balcony at the White House on exactly the right date, so that all the people in the Q movement go, see, it's true. It's like, yeah, they're part of the agencies that work for him. So, of course, they knew when he would be there. They could even possibly give him little instructions to say, please say hello to the rabbit when you're on the balcony. Of course they could do that because they work for the agencies. And that's all part of creating that narrative to keep you chasing that rabbit, thinking that he's the Messiah. You don't need to do anything. You can just sit back and wait. And the white hats who are on the inside are going to fix it from the inside for you. They're going to bring legal cases against people that control the courts that judge those legal cases. And we're back to the who is your arbiter. An arbiter is a judge between two parties. Or constantly drawing people drawing their sovereignty out of them and sticking it to somebody else, turning it into a symbol and then attaching that symbol to somebody else. So whenever you see that symbol, even if it's a subtle, almost unconscious cue, word Q, C-U-E, Q, the letter Q, a subconscious cue, it recalls to your mind a mode of thinking or connotations that then color your mode of thinking that affect your actions, or more relevant in this sense, your non-action. Yeah, so you believe that the golden-haired Messiah is going to fix it all, the insiders are going to sort it all out, the patriots will save the day. However it's framed, it's the same result. You don't need to do anything. So that was sort of the Q element of what I wanted to mention tonight. Yeah? That was mainly the main thing I wanted to mention, but it does bring us back to the subject that I was talking about the other week, the message or the messenger. Yeah, they don't want a population that can comprehend or question or digest a message for themselves and then make a decision on that information as to what they're going to do with that information, if anything. Yeah? They don't want a population of critical thinkers. So many people have said this in many different ways over the years, decades. Yeah? They don't want a population of critical thinkers that are able to figure things out for themselves. They want a population that defers to an external leader or icon or priest or celebrity, whoever it is that they feel an affinity for whatever reason. It could be to do with their upbringing, it could be to do with their personal choices of lifestyle, whatever. There is a leader out there, there is an icon, there is a cloned representative, and I mean cloned in a metaphorical sense. They might be literally, but you know, I mean, in my sense that I want to get across here, it's metaphorically they're a clone of so many other archetypes. Yeah, they want you to put all your trust in that external leader figure. So you forget the message, just concentrate on the messenger. And in a odd synchronicity, you know, I've been mentioning a few times tonight, I don't really like coincidences. I'm not a coincidence theorist. But in an interesting synchronicity, I was catching up some of the broadcasts of the Stephen King new dramatization they've done of The Stand, because I thought it was quite appropriate that they released that now, because it's all about after a massive sort of biblical plague has killed most of the population, and you're left with this small group of people that are basically reenacting the Bible. You know, there's a good side and a bad side, and the devil versus the angelic prophet of the good people, and they're fighting each other and whatever. Yeah, but there was a scene in there when one of the council members on the good guy's side, a professor, somebody, I can't even remember the character's name, but he makes this comment when they're talking about making a speech in front of the group of people. They're worried that the group of people will react badly. You know, can't panic the horses, don't spook the horses, you know, that kind of thing. So they're talking about how they can present the information to their little community without scaring everybody. And this professor character says, like, you got to concentrate on the messenger, not the message. And I just thought, and that's so synchronistic with some of the stuff I was talking about recently. It's like, there you go. There's a really good example of how the process starts getting fucked up. They want their little community to concentrate on the messenger. And because he's talking to a large group of people, he has to dilute the message. So in other words, what the actual recipient of the information gets is this garbled, much reduced chunk of info that is somewhat unactionable in any way, because they don't have enough detail in their part of information. So what do? They defer to that leader that just gave them this little, you know, snippet of something. You know, so, oh, you're telling us there's something to be worried about. Okay, well, you sort it out then, mate. But that message in a messenger land that I was talking about the other week, who is the arbiter of truth? They want you to accept their truth. You know, as I pointed out many times over this last year, most of what they've been saying is bullshit, and they are repeatedly gaslighting the public. They are repeatedly lying barefaced to the public, you know, straight into the camera, lying to people, and at the same time pushing the ideas of things like the lockdown, the social distancing, the mask wearing, etc. Why are they so confident that doing things that way is still going to work and get the result they want? That's because, unfortunately, a large part of the population is still stuck in that thinking of the external arbiter for their own internal debate. You know, you've got left and right hemispheres. The corpus callosum in the middle is the arbiter between the two and brings the two into a balanced whole. You know, it's not just logic, it's logic and creativity. It's logic and art at the same time in a balanced union working together. You know, you're not just a computer. You are not just a biological robot. You are far more than that. But that's the impression they want most of the public to have, and that's the kind of mindset that they want most of the public to have. Defer to the external and don't think about it for yourself. Don't do your own research. You know, they've told you, you're a crazy, naughty person if you try doing your own research. And one more thing I want to mention, really, on this whole point about the arbiter as well, because this has become relevant again recently. The situation around Jeff C. and his death, his passing. There's still some people out there that are pursuing this concept that there's something untoward that happened and that you can't trust any of the people that are telling you the information about what happened on that night when he died. You know? And it always, I've looked at a fair amount of what they've been putting out, and I've been listening to what they've been saying, or speculating, really, because that's what it comes down to. They're just speculating. You know, it's one thing to speculate, it's another to deliberately generate a cult of personality drama around the situation, around his passing, because that's what it keeps getting resolved back to. Yeah, it's an unfortunate part of reality that you won't always have access to information that makes you feel confident that you know what happened in a situation. You know, you don't always know what happens behind closed doors, as they say. You may not get access to the information that gives you that feeling of confidence of like, right, yeah, okay, now I know what happened. I feel satisfied now, I can move on. And there's people out there that will deliberately exploit that. And they keep coming back and making these suggestions of like, oh, somebody is rumored that they were told by somebody else that they knew a friend who got told to not talk about it or not ask questions. Oh, and you see the big wooden spoon going round and round in that pot of cult of personality stew. Yeah. And they want you to fixate on the leader icon that they're trying to turn Jeff into. You know, we can have a long discussion about the reality of, yes, he was a very strong influence on many people. He was an influence for good, in my opinion. Yeah, but he was a loud and a big voice out there. Yeah. So, yeah, he had a lot of influence on people. But I'm confident to say that he himself would not want to have been seen as a leader, and he certainly would not have wanted people to end up in a drama bitch fest because they have disputes about whether he did actually die of an aneurysm or something else, or what was going on. You know, just generating drama for no reason. And even if, and you know, I'm not avoiding asking certain questions or looking at certain possibilities. I just don't see any good result in pursuing them. Even if they can find even a snippet of evidence to suggest that something untoward happened to him, what can you do about it? And what result would it get to actually help the people that appreciated his work, liked him as a broadcaster, as a content creator, people that he'd helped, etc. What good is it going to do for those people if you even find any information to suggest that something untoward or something bad happened to him? You know, he was off to suicided, as they say. Yeah, where are you going to take that information? Do you think you're going to get it taken to a court? Do you think you're going to get the secret agents who did him in brought into court and prosecuted and put in prison? Do you really think that'd happen? Are you a part of the Q tribe? Because that's the level of thinking of the Cubies. You know, you're talking about if the kind of things that they're speculating on and suggesting have any truth to them whatsoever, then you're talking about a chain of events that would show that there is a direct link to the agencies. And if there's a direct link to the agencies, what do you think you're going to achieve by finding out that information? You find a bit of information that shows it was somehow connected to the agencies. You present that to the public. What's that going to result in? Is that going to change the work that he produced? Is that going to change the effect of all the time and effort he put into that work? What is it you're trying to achieve? You know, where do you think it's going to end up? You know, this is why, like I say, I'm not avoiding certain questions or anything like that, like some people have suggested. But I have actually thought through some of those questions and considered, well, is it going to create any positive results at all in any way? Or is it going to result in just being more destructive, more caustic than anything else? Because you're tricking people back into the same problem of fixating upon the personality, the messenger, and not the message he was presenting to you. Yeah, even if you prove that he himself was somehow a bad guy in some fashion, does that disprove the work that he presented to you? Unless, again, you're stuck in a cult of personality where you just accepted everything he said to you and you never looked into anything for yourself. You didn't do what he actually told you to do and go and look for the information yourself. Again, it makes no sense to fixate upon pursuing that kind of allegation or even just suggestion of possibilities. You know, it gets nowhere, it achieves nothing. Maybe for some people it will give them some kind of sense of satisfaction or something. I don't know, closure, you know, as some people like to call it. But I think the concept of closure in and of itself can be unbalanced and unhealthy, because this is something that comes out of the fucking culture of therapy, and that's, you know, all keyed into the modern age and the destruction of the social community connection that populations had before the rise of all these oh man, what can I call them? Bureaucratic structures, infrastructures, things like the NGOs and think tanks and all that kind of stuff, which would include things like, you know, Tavistock and all the connections into the therapy that they push out. But anyway, my point being, there's some people that feel they need that kind of closure. But the concept of closure, psychologically, I think you've got to be careful with the concept of closure, because sometimes there is never what they describe as closure. Sometimes you just have to accept reality the way it is and go, well, I'm never going to find out the answer to that. So I have to accept that level of closure. Yeah, a lot of the therapy that they put people through gives them this concept that there will be a very distinct end closure point, and that's when you'll be able to move on. So that creates a predisposition in the mind that you can't move on until you get that closure thing occur. That limits people, and that stunts their progress of moving through their grief, their bereavement, their whatever it is that they're trying to deal with. Yeah. But I thought it was very relevant to mention that again now, because like I say, it's still going on in the background. And as I've said multiple times in the past, I'm not telling people they shouldn't be talking about it or asking questions or anything like that. But again, it should be obvious to most people that if you're going to inquire about things, if you're going to investigate the situation, have some decency about you. You know, you can look for information, you can inquire about things without being abusive or harassing people. You know, that's all it comes down to. Because that's classically, again, that's why I wanted to refer to this, the situation around Pizzagate. What happened around that situation? Some people turned up who seemed a fair bit crazy. Possibly they were provocateurs of some form, you know, crisis actors. As that phrase that often gets bandied around, but they could have been deliberately placed to create a narrative of, oh, look, the crazies have turned up at this pizzeria and are harassing the owner because they think there's children locked up in the basement. You could investigate that situation without having to go to the site and harass the owner directly, personally, in that fashion. Do you see what I mean? You know, it should be obvious to most people in your population, hopefully, because when it comes down to it, we police ourselves in our interactions with each other more than we are controlled by the police forces that we have within our nations. Yeah, we are the peacekeepers more than the rest of them. Yeah, so if we can't interact with each other in a decent fashion, even if you're investigating potentially a crime or malfeasance or whatever, if we can't interact with each other in a decent manner, then you're just going to create more problems. Anyway, digressing a lot. So yeah, I'm not telling anybody not to investigate, but please don't fall into that quagmire of cult of personality bullshit.
So easy though, isn't it, when people get sucked in? And
unfortunately, it's a fertile ground on this internet medium.
Yes.
For people to exploit each other.
Yeah.
You know, so for whatever their reasons, there's going to be people out there trying to exploit the situation.
Yeah, and look up the word naive.
Yeah. Naive. Yeah. You are a knave. Naive. Knave is naive.
And we all learn. That's how we learn sometimes, by making silly errors, mistakes in judgment, or believing somebody and it's all a load of bollocks. It's like, you know, like say, how many times you need to go down that path before it you know, there's plenty of red flags along the way, you know, plenty, as you mentioned.
It's why as well I wanted to come back to the Q thing. Yeah, I thought it was also just relevant, the fact that it was the 17th episode. It seemed like just, yeah, that was a cue. That was when I looked at the numbers on the list. I was thinking, oh, it's the 17th. Yeah, definitely going to mention the Q tonight. Then, yeah, it just seemed highly relevant to me to come back to that and make that point again. Oh, there's Days. Hey, mate, you all right? Maybe your microphone isn't working. If you're saying anything, mate, we can't hear anything this end. So check your microphone. That's it.
Right. How are we doing, Cookie?
Hi, Peter.
Hiya. You all right?
Nice. I just when you were talking about Q there, you were speaking earlier. It's maybe another avenue for like learned helplessness. Yeah. Could it perhaps be looked at as Q, like QUEUE? In that sense, like Q in line for the Messiah.
Yeah, like a lamb.
The abdication of action and responsibility.
Yeah, so other people do it for you. Well, yeah, and whilst it's not, they're helping themselves.
If anything, you could describe it as, especially as you just said it, then they're helping themselves. But I'm thinking from the state's point of view, from that cabal of the bloodlines, you know, however you want to describe them, the cabal or whatever, they're playing against themselves. They have created this sub-project that was meant to act as a limited hangout and to harness a lot of the support of the demographics that it was purposefully targeted at. I'm sorry to say this, and I don't mean it in a derogatory fashion, but unfortunately, that majority was the Christian right in America. Yeah, the conservative Christian demographic in America. That was what Q was aimed at directly. Yeah, they created this thing so that it could be the controlled opposition for themselves. Yeah, the Hegelian dialects. And now, in effect, it's like they're playing chess with themselves. Because they got these cubies, and I mean the ones that are controlled, paid, controlled opposition, etc., attacking them to create the justification for them to bring in more draconian controls. Yeah, I feel maybe it's just me, and it's a kind of disassociation effect. But I feel more and more like I'm sat in the seating in a theatre. And I'm watching these two going at each other on a stage, you know? And it's like watching a really badly performed version of Hamlet or something.
All last year has been like watching the world's worst horror film in slow motion, you know, trying to tell people around you what's coming up.
I should say as well, you know, I'm not directing my my dissatisfaction, call it that. Yeah, I'm not trying to have a go at people that were following the Q stuff. And again, like I said, with everything, I'm not telling you that you shouldn't go and look at it if you're interested. You know, it's better. Truth is best learned, or more truly, you know, truth can only be learned through self-realization. If you want to know this, you need to go and look at it for yourself. Don't appoint me as your arbiter of truth. Yeah, but I think a lot of it was like, you know, I'm not having a go at the people that have fallen in with it or fallen for it or been tricked by it or invested too much emotion and energy into it. This happens again and again and again. You know, this is why I tried to say it from the point of view of, if anything, I'm glad it's happened the way it has, because now more people have experienced getting played by one of their illusionists. You know, the state system, you know, the agencies. Their illusionists have tricked you. Now you've realised you've been tricked. You're not going to fall for that same shit so easily next time, are you? You know, I could do the Bush quote, but I can't misquote it the way he did. You know, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice. No, see, shame I did do the Bush. Yeah, did the Bush. Yeah. Fool me twice, shame on me. Oh yeah, can I get me dunce cap now?
What you were saying primarily, Cookie, right? Tonight. I mean, that's the reason why I came on, because I hate like sort of repeating myself. I hate coming on here if I've got nothing fresh to sort of offer or whatever, right? But this subject, who becomes the arbiter of truth? This is one of the most important questions of our time. You need to understand how important this is. The mainstream media, the alternative media, the political parties, the religious organisations, and the social network platforms, they are all trying to claim that. They're all trying to claim to be the arbiter of truth. Yeah. Ultimately, they're all part of an overarching control system, which is attempting to capture your sovereignty and become the master of your subjective reality. So imagine how much worse that gets when you're in a cashless society that's tied to the social credit system, or further down the road when you're connected to the artificial general intelligence mainframe via the Neuralink that's screwed into your nut. Yeah. It's so important that people become the arbiters of their own truth.
Exactly.
By analysing all the data points out there and coming to their own conclusions.
There's a lot of commonalities that I think we can agree on. Yeah, and I know I could quite happily, when I say quite happily, I would do it, you know, if the situation was that way. But we can have hours long discussions about what is reality and what does it mean to experience reality, and things like epistemology, and where does your knowledge of reality come from, things like that. That's classically like, you know, that's campfire talk where you can sit and bounce ideas off each other, but it's a kind of amorphous concept that you can't really put a definitive endpoint to it. You can't get closure on it. Yeah, it's like the question about God. You know, you cannot prove or disprove God. So having those kind of discussions is, yeah, it's great, it's interesting, it can be enlightening and fulfilling in many ways. Yeah, but there's a lot of other stuff that we can agree on, because the commonality of the result is the same around the world. You know, when people carry out the same experiments with the same conditions, they get the same result, that kind of thing. Yeah.
And people are scared of the truth, and it, you know, it does set you free in the end when you realize what is going on. You know, when you break all that down properly, you begin to take those mental chains off, you know, in your head, that you've chained yourself up with all these belief systems and stuff, and suddenly they all start snapping away, and you begin to be able to think for yourself, probably for the first time. And it is a bit of a revelation, you know, in yourself, you know, when you go through that, that sort of awakening, if we want to call it, whatever term you want to call it, but that suddenly, you know, it's you beginning to get it, you know. And you can see that more than ever now. It's an accelerated process at the moment, and so
in a similar fashion, mention the what I find to be a commonality amongst most peoples, maybe not as clearly defined in a linear fashion as I'm going to now describe it, but it usually occurs in some way, and that's the grief process. You know, I've talked about this many times, that grief process of denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. And that's a loose definition of the phases that nearly all of us go through when you experience some form of grief. You know, usually you only see it emanate, as in become visually obvious through what you could describe as symptoms. Yeah, but you see it visually, physically emanate from people when they've experienced the loss of somebody they're very close to, or something that they're very close to. It's not necessarily a living entity. Yeah, but we all go through that process, and this is why I don't think it's wrong. If anything, I think it's wrong to deny that process occurring. So trying to deny those elements of that process, trying to deny the denial factor. You can't really deny the denial factor. When you first find out certain information, this is why commonly you'll see the reaction from, I'll call them newbies. I don't mean it in a derogatory fashion, but people are new to a certain concept or chunk of information. Newbies will most commonly react with denial. And then the anger will begin, but their anger will be reversed and projected onto you, the person who presented them the information. So in a similar fashion to the message and messenger concept, they don't like the message, so they attack the messenger because they're blaming you for the message. Yeah, they need somewhere to direct their anger for the fault that you have presented to them. But the same with bargaining and depression and acceptance, etc. I don't think it's healthy to deny or try to ignore or circumvent each of those phases. They don't, just as a an additional point, they don't necessarily happen in that linear fashion. Yeah, not everybody goes through them in that specific order, but everybody experiences them at some point during a grieving process. But the main thing I'm trying to say is that we can't deny the denial effect. We can't deny the anger effect. People get angry. Yeah, they've just found out some information that's made them realize or helped them realize that something that they used to believe in or have a trust in, like their government or a politician or whatever, has been proven to be faulty or fake, such that the concept they had living in their mind has died. Their world has died. So they have an angry reaction to learning that truth. Yeah? You can't, I don't think it's good to try and steer people out of that process. Yeah, the only thing that's I think is important is helping people realize that, yeah, you're going to go through that process. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with you feeling emotional and feeling frustrated and you want to shout at the sky and shout at the politicians or whatever. Of course you do. That's your process of grieving for a world that you've lost.
Yeah.
But you have to get through that grieving process. What do you do with that energy of your anger? Throwing yourself at the system doesn't work, like we've been seeing because I was going to mention it, the protests in the Netherlands, there's protests in France, there's protests in Germany, and a lot of the media coverage is typical like riot porn. Yeah, they're showing all the violence and destruction and whatever, but that's where the system wants your anger to go. That's why they keep prodding you, so that you get angry and throw yourself at the system, and then they turn around and go, oh, see, they're attacking us. We need more police. We need more barriers. We need more guns.
Make your way to the designated protest area.
Well, it's ongoing anyway, that protest right now. Sorry, Days, go on.
Yeah.
On you go, Peter.
I was going to say that protest going on at the moment in Rotterdam still. There's
In Rotterdam.
Yeah, they were covering it, or protest, or there was people lighting fires and general sort of disorder.
The clips I saw earlier were of The Hague, I think.
Yeah, and they've just stopped the stream about 2 minutes ago, so they've stopped doing it. But yeah, I've seen other footage as well from the weekend as well from there and other places. It's
Eindhoven, and I know there was another one. What's The Hague? Eindhoven and The Hague.
Amsterdam as well. Was that?
Just thinking with the denial aspect of it, it can be too much for a lot of people to take initially, like for what it implies, this overarching control structure. Is it a Luciferian fascist? I mean, what is it? Like that can be too dark for a lot of people initially,
Yeah, it is a very steep cliff, a very tall and very steep cliff. When the process begins, people can most definitely feel like they're falling off the edge of the world, in a unfortunate pun, but yeah, like they're falling off the edge of the world and there is no ground anymore.
Like the belief engine stalls, it's like an existential threat to them in that regard.
This is why I think I might have mentioned this ages ago, probably, but this is why I think some certain narrative elements were pushed out through the media, concepts like the simulation theory. Yeah, they're trying to account for the fact that people are feeling this disassociative effect, such that they feel like the world around them has become unreal, surreal. So they introduce this theory to fill in for that feeling. They're filling in the void in people's stomach, basically, to say, oh, you have this sense that all your world is unreal because we keep telling you all this information that is fake, and you're looking at the world and going, this can't be real. Well, here you go. Here's a theory that will fill in that sense in you, that hole where you feel like this is all unreal. Well, it is unreal according to this theory.
It's like inversion is key to the dark occultist's ideology. If you look at the obese transsexual that Biden installed as the health secretary there, that just embodies it, That's supposed to represent health. It's just like they're teaching the kids in the UK at the moment. There's over 100 genders, etc. With this whole process, they've robbed the kids of a childhood. They've instilled a fear of others with the masks and the lockdowns, and they're confusing them about their own identities. It's really quite insidious.
Yeah.
Well, it's good that there's people fighting back now. I think there's shops are beginning to open, aren't they, and things like that. There's something that you had, Cookie, before.
I'm just gonna. I'll flick through some screenshots. I don't want to play the videos just in case they cause any conflicts or whatever. I'll put the
copyright claims and all that.
Yeah,
they monetize your videos, don't they? I did that in my other one.
The thing is, as well, is now you can't even really get a good comprehension of how the rules are being applied. Yeah, it's become very Kafkaesque in the sense that, is it YouTube that's bringing the copyright against you, or is it the owner of the original content of the channel? Is it them trying to get you done for a copyright, or is it a third-party company that claims the copyright. It's just become ridiculous. Yeah, and they've made it that way purposefully, obviously, to make the sharing of information harder.
Yeah.
But these are just some of the people that have been covering the other stuff is just RT. I won't bother giving you links for the RT news channel. Find that easy enough. That's them covering what was going on in the Danish lands, in the lowlands. And I'll put a link in for this one as well. This was from Never Lose Truth, whose original channel used to be Kafka Winston World.
Oh, yeah.
Carol in America. And she's obviously still been carrying on her other channels. But I'll put this link in on because she did a good 40 minutes coverage of various news about the UK. Some of it is a bit older, like some of the stories she references are from 2 or 3 weeks ago, but it's a good snapshot. Yeah, if you want a snapshot of some of the kind of media crap that's been pumped out at us here in the UK, that's a good coverage of that. Yeah, as well as she was covering some of the events happening, like the flooding. But that kind of coverage of people actually starting to get together, like that was the march in Liverpool. There was a few thousand people there. That was the remember Scott Webb shared the video of the two ladies in Scotland with the lending library, and the police come along and just arrested them both and shoved her in a van. Other protests that have happened where people are just been it's seemingly randomly picked up, but they are targeting certain demographics, and they are really pushing the intimidation tactics. You see on some of the video clips, there's like one guy like him, and there's about 8 coppers around him. 8 supposed constables, but they're not operating on their oath, so really they're not constables, they're officers. 8 of them for one guy, and he wasn't doing anything. He was just walking down the road, and they decide they're going to pick him up.
And they've ramped up the emotive propaganda as well with the look into their eyes. Have you seen that? That propaganda? So looking
as a counter meme. I would like them to, if somebody could do these kind of memes, get some photographs of the children as they're having a traumatic outpouring because of the amount of propaganda bullshit that they've been subjected to constantly. Kids falling into psychosis or developing psychosis because they're being subjected to this constant terrorism. It is literally terrorism. The government is sanctioning, putting out propaganda that is meant to terrorize its own population into obedience. You think of the effect that's having on children who don't have an adult's mind to be able to weigh the content of what they're being presented with. No, they're just subjected with this constant fear porn. Do an image of one of them children and say, look into their eyes and tell them that you're happily giving up their future, and also that you're happy for them to be terrorized and tormented such that they develop a lifelong psychosis.
Trauma-based mind control.
Yeah. Fuck you, SAGE team members, your psychological fucking abuse. And the one before I got into ranting about riot porn, so this is the one Peter was referencing. The UK column mentioned this today as well. Hopefully, 30th of January, it's the end of this month on a Saturday, they're calling it the Great Reopening. I'm not sure how well if you can make that out. There is a web address, a URL there if you wanted to look it up and check it out. And this is carrying on from the example, when was it, last week in Italy, where, and I only know this from the reports I've read, obviously I'm not in Italy to confirm this, but supposedly 50,000 plus businesses, restaurants, cafes, places like that reopened and just carried on trading as normal. and ignored the lockdown. And again, Carol features a little bit in some of her video coverage that she's done recently. Some of the videos of the people sat in the restaurants, and the police come in, the gendarmerie or whatever they're called, come in, and the people will just start telling them to go away. We don't want you here. You're our servants. We don't need you here. Leave.
See, this is what we need: unified resistance, right?
Yeah,
But I think this is why they went so hard on the identity politics before they brought all this COVID hoax. So that it smashes up any unified resistance, and people are all siloed off.
And they softened everyone up, like the males in particular, to need to stand up and say something. The men.
Toxic masculinity. That would be.
It absolutely does not need to be violent or aggressive.
Not at all.
Yeah, but I know, like it's like I said earlier and at the start, is sometimes you have to state the obvious. This is an unfortunate part of this modern mass media internet technology that we make use of. You have to state the obvious, and
because the lies are repeated that much.
And as well, but I was going to say, because at the moment the system will quite happily exploit anything you say against you. So if you make any suggestion that they could turn around and say, "Oh, that's dangerous. You're inciting people. You're committing hate crimes, whatever the fuck it is." Yeah. So you have to state the obvious sometimes. Yeah. This kind of stuff is all about absolutely non-violent,
non-compliant.
Using non-compliance to make the point. We are the peacekeepers. The police provide a role within our societies. That's a useful, it's a needed role in many ways, but they're not really the backbone of what keeps law and order in any country. There is logistically not enough of them to actually literally do that if it was required. Go and look at any third world country that's living under a warlord dictator, and you'll see what I mean. The police cannot enforce law and order across the entire population. They rely on the large majority of the population policing themselves, being their own peacekeepers, not aggressing against each other. Yeah. That's what this is all about. Making the point that, look, we're not being unlawful. We are not criminals. We are just operating our businesses. We are providing services to the communities and neighborhoods that we are part of. We don't need your interference. We don't need your fines and arrests and other bullshit.
And it's finding the courage to do that, is what I'm saying. In people, in male and female, finding the courage to do that, just to be non-compliant and don't be frightened. You can say no, and like they said in Italy, they just telling them to go away. Slightly different culture out there, but but that's where we need to be at if we're going to stop this madness.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I had any other screen shares I wanted to. I was going to mention, like I said earlier, I thought about changing the thumbnail to kittens. That just had me searching for silly images, and I came up with, I know we talked about this article when it came out. It's nearly a year ago, 12th of February.
The cat in the mask.
Yeah. Kittens in masks. That was what I thought of when I was looking for a thumbnail image to do, just to try and confuse the YouTube algorithm. But
cross the Rubicon of ridiculousness, I'm afraid.
It is. That's now where we're at.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that is now where we're at, which is why I want to. I'll go back to screen sharing some of the funny stuff that's been shared around recently. I did show that one earlier. Yeah, I feel like I need to do the art gallery music with this.
Well, that good one of Biden there going up into the volcano. Yeah.
Do 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 do. Do 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 do. The Punisher doesn't need a fucking mask. Sorry.
Oh yes, the big revolt.
The Express has actually featured a few articles recently that have been quite upfront and containing some good elements of truth to them. You know, they had I'm not sure if he was a doctor or was it, some medical expert, you know, another expert I know, but he was saying stuff that I like, so therefore he's an expert that I accept. But he was just saying almost verbatim the stuff that we've been talking about over the last year. The government is carrying out systematic psychological abuse on its population based on the way it's putting out this concept of there being more of a threat than there really is. Yeah, so even their own experts now are starting to point out, like, actually, the sage advice is going to cause more people to develop psychological problems, so that the end result is going to be worse than their alleged COVID. And of course, the Daily Mail.
That
would probably be the carrot. The carrot, yeah.
They backtracked on that, didn't they?
It's still up in the air. It was just a suggestion that was being rumoured. This is what I think we mentioned it a couple of weeks ago. James Corbett did a little video about it. This is what they call a trial balloon. This is where they rumour or they put out a little bit of comment to suggest that they're thinking about doing something. And then they gauge the public reaction as to whether they go ahead with it or not.
Massage it into the public's consciousness slowly.
Yeah. They have actually suggested this more than once. This is not the first time they've suggested paying people. You know, remember they said the same thing about getting people to get tests. They were talking about giving people cash rewards to go and get tested.
Wow. Desperation or what?
Yeah. See, that's Joe's arms reaching out to hug America and then sniff its hair. I think this one was meant to be the
Quaid, isn't it? Yeah.
Bishop from the original Alien movie.
Oh, right, the Alien. I thought it was the other one with was it not the Running Man?
You're thinking of Total Recall.
Yeah, that one.
Quaid. Yeah. It's Jozo the Destroyer.
Got a logo on Bill Murray's arm there. It's just the wee details that made that one. Nice one, Tony.
Yeah. The Joe Busters. All aboard, America.
Air Force One, in you go.
Come on, man. I can't. I'm crap at impressions anyway. I was going to say I can't do a Joe impression.
Well, what was that thing I saw? It was someone was saying when he said salute the Marines. He actually said it, and apparently he's got an earpiece and telling them to salute the Marines, and he just says it as he's walking to people. Salute the Marines. So no, you salute the Marines.
He read out the stage directions as opposed to the script.
He's just got apparently how he's going to survive apparently because he cannot hold anything together. I mean, he's got to do this. What's this thing? They do it every year in the House. I can't remember what it's called.
State of the Union.
State of the Union. He's got to come out and do that, and he's got no help there. And really, he's just got to come out and do it, and it's going to be interesting to see if he can do it. He's just looks very incapable of doing anything.
I know there was another image I want to find. Some of the guys have been sharing. Let me just swap the screen share to that one. I think, I've just seen that one. Hang on. It must have been a few further back. No similarities there, folks. Yeah. That's why them two go together, I think. The strong should not bully the weak, President Xi said. Decisions should not be made by simply showing off strong muscles or waving a big fist. Yeah, it doesn't. See, it's not a fist. It's karate hand. You know, he's about to do the karate chop on all the Uyghur Muslims that are in the so-called re-education camps. Anyway, move on. That's one for the Scottish guys. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
See, the
Apparently-
pets in the masks.
They spread it. Apparently, you have to get your pets vaccinated now.
Yep.
According to the Daily Star.
We did say, when was it? Back like middle of last year. I said
They can
expect them
transmit
to
things.
start
Yeah, they can
talking about getting your pets vaccinated.
They're saying they can transmit from human to dog. I mean,
Yeah.
or to animal to human.
That's like a parody article, like something you would get in the
Mm.
Onion or something.
Yeah, well, it is the Daily Star.
Oh well.
Yes.
It does seem quite appropriate at the moment. You might actually find more sense in there. Yeah. I was thinking about something the other night, which is a bit of an obtuse thing, but the kind of projection that the system itself, the state, does. It's like they are filled with a spiritual effluent, and then they send out these psychic flatulence at you, which is their way of getting you to smell what is inside their minds. You know, it's like a psychic fart they have to project out at you so that you can smell the contents of their mind. I only had the first dose. I've got to go back for the second one.
2 more next year.
Lockdown drawing to an end. The Chippendales have announced they are now taking bookings.
That's yeah.
That way myself.
And this, you could say this is somewhat of the kind of, as some people have suggested, the Sharia mask effect. You know, bringing in the mask mandate to get people gradually conditioned to the introduction of Sharia law. I disagree with the concept that that's why they're doing it. I certainly agree that there is symbolically the same element to it as, you know, the face coverings, and there's that level of manipulation of people's thinking and interaction that happens. But I don't think the British government is intending to introduce Sharia law.
I think the face mask is more to do with faceless collectivism, like you are a slave, you're voiceless, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All that kind of good stuff.
And you're germy and you're contagious. Mask up.
You are just an economic unit.
You're silent, you virus.
You're an infectious economic unit.
But no, the masks are off. Maybe take them all off en masse.
No mention he was diagnosed with lung cancer 4 years ago, but he was hospitalised with COVID-19 earlier this month.
Yes. It's a good way of quickly identifying the compliant as well, these masks.
Yep. Mm-hmm. It is, I think, unfortunately, getting to a stage where if you're inclined to want to be making your own statement by not wearing a mask, you are potentially putting a great big beacon on your head. So, yeah, it's worth a consideration as to choose your time and place, unless you're prepared to put up with the consequences. If you're aware of, if you're cognizant of the possibilities of the reactions you might get from other people, things like that, then that's your choice. Yeah, but don't be going into it with blinkers on. You know, the system is quite happy when people martyr themselves in defiance against it. You know, they'll very happily edit your story on the BBC editing machines, so that, you know, your act of defiance will just get painted as an act of aggressive violence or some shit like that.
Also, obviously, with you're inhaling your own carbon dioxide and that, you know, so the death cult, that's exactly what they want you to do, you know, so it's another reason for the mask, obviously. Again, stating the obvious, you know what I mean, but it's got to be said.
That's unbelievable, isn't it?
Chromosomes.
That's a cracker.
It's like you shared the text earlier from the scene in Life of Brian, Monty Python's Life of Brian, where Stan is insisting he wants to be referred to as a woman.
I want to be called Loretta.
Yeah, and he wants to have babies.
Every man's right to have babies if he wants to have babies.
It's John Cleese, isn't it, playing the other characters, like the authoritarian kind of guy. And he turns around and says, "What are you talking about? You crazy? You can't have babies."
It's as symbolic in our fight against oppression, Reg. No, it's symbolic against your fight against reality. You know what I mean? This is exactly what's going on just now. You know,
gaslighting on a global scale, on a paradigm scale, because they now want in this new normal the rejection of reality. They want you to just accept whatever they say reality is. It's classically Orwellian. 2 + 2 = 5 if the state tells you it equals 5.
postmodern cultural Marxism.
Yeah. And these are some of the ones that I wanted to point out here. This again is all the symbology that was encoded into the inauguration.
Yeah.
And this is not the only thing. There was another, I think it's that one. Yeah.
Pretty blatant there.
Yeah. And it's been pointed out by many people. I don't know if the author, it is a woman, I think the author herself said this as well. But the Hunger Games, the storyline backdrop that the world is, portrayed as in the movie, the Hunger Games, in all 3 of the movies, is the epitome of Agenda 2030, Agenda 21, Agenda 2030. So if they continue along the track that they want to take all this stuff, then although it is a kind of extreme representation, that's like a good way off in the future maybe, but that is basically what you're talking about, the Hunger Games environment. People are not allowed to go beyond their urban designated areas. You're not allowed out into the rural countryside. That is all run by drones, by machines. Humans aren't allowed out there because you will infect the nature. You will disrupt the natural world. So you have to stay within your little village urban zones where you will be given monopolized tasks to perform. Like, think of some of the big cities in China where they've literally built entire cities to produce one particular type of product. They've got various things. They've got cities that produce just electronics, cities that produce just paper-based materials and stuff like that. That is the kind of level, the scale of societal control that they want to have if you let them do it.
It ties in with the Agenda 21 and 30, like make room for nature, the rewilding programs and the human habitat corridors.
Yeah. And the control of information, because information is a resource, the information is controlled just as much as the stuff that they're producing in each of the different zones. And they're set in competition against each other, each different zone. In the storyline in the movies, you can think of each different zones as like what used to be a nation state somewhere. So they've all been amalgamated into this neo-feudal federation system, and then they're in these supposed friendly competitions with each other. But it's not friendly at all. It's deliberate to enable the means of control. But yes, that was this week's gallery. Thanks to all the guys in the chat that share those images, and thanks to Big T for the ones that he puts together, like the Ghostbusters one, the Jozo the Destroyer. I'm just calling it that because in the movie the monster was called Gozer, I think, Gozer the Destroyer.
The Traveller has
just taken Joe's name and converted it into Jozo the Destroyer. Anyway, I think that's about us all done through what I wanted to talk about.
Thanks, Cookie, and thanks all in the chat as well. Thank you.
Hello to everyone that's still in the chat. Thanks for joining in. I'm not going to do another roll call now because it will take too long again. It's good that there's lots of people in the chat, but at the same time, when I want to do a roll call, it can take 10, 15, 20 minutes to go through everyone's name. I'm trying to find the link to Dr. Rock's show. I know I've got it in my bookmarks. So I will just grab that while I'm waffling. And we will be back again on Wednesday.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm totally stumped because I was looking at my bookmarks and where it should be. I don't know if I moved that. I don't know why. Whatever. Sorry, I have found it. Yeah, we'll be back on Wednesday night for the reality chat on Pete's channel, the reality chat channel, 8 p.m. GMT. Is a link to the posttruthworld.net website, which is where Dr. Rock is doing his broadcasts on a Thursday night. And I know from what he said, there's during the week there's other people broadcasting as well, and there's music being broadcast on a regular basis. So if you want a kind of radio show to tune in, go and check out that website, posttruthworld.net. And Steve Takous will be on Thursday night, 8 p.m. GMT as well. Everything's at 8 p.m. It's the 8. Yeah. Next week, I'm going to take the night off next Monday, which would be the 1st of February. Partly because I just feel like I need a break. Been going all through the holiday and Christmas and New Year period and whatever. And I might invest in getting an actual subscription to this StreamYard system so we can get access to a few of the other functions in the software, because it's great that they give us this functionality for free, but there's some extra little widgets and toys and stuff that I'd like to play with, so it might look slightly different when I come back. Just the fact that it hopefully won't have the logo on it and things like that. But we will be here Wednesday night. And we'll see what happens as we move towards the end of January, and hopefully that great reopening takes place. I really hope so, because it absolutely is down to mass numbers. Yeah. They will jump all over you if you try and do this kind of stuff on your own. It needs common unity, common unity, community.
People coming together and just sticking together and just getting on with it.
I'm going to have a little wander down. It's only a small high street here. I'll have a check just to see on the 30th if anybody is opening up that hasn't been. Because I was also going to say, like, if you see or hear or something like that happening in your area, go and show them some support. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can, go in and buy something in their shop, show them the support that they need. But yes, thanks everyone for tuning in, and don't think it's all over yet. It's not. The fat lady hasn't even got her dress on yet. She's far too busy talking crap on the TV and telling everyone that they should be calling her Boris. That'll be a funny reality if we find that out next year. Next week, Boris is going to go through the transition. He's going to come back as I can't even think of a silly feminine name for Boris. Doreen. Apologies to all the Doreens out there. Yeah. Doris, yeah. I missed that completely, mate. Thank you. That was the obvious one, wasn't it? Yeah, Doris. Yeah. Anyway, folks, thanks again. Say goodbye now. Thanks for joining in. Cut cheese. I'm going to click the button.